We're here today to explain the treaties, okay, from Eastern Canada right through Canada, to explain the treaties and to explain the, why treaties were made. Also to explain the impact of treaties is having here on our country. Also, the impact is having on the First Nation, and also for the Métis people. We're all impacted with these treaties because there's many treaties which were maybe acknowledged but maybe not respected. Okay, that's why we're trying to bring them back alive.
And right away, just to set the tone, can you define what a treaty is?
A treaty is an agreement. It's the same thing, and I would say if you're going to buy a house, you have a contract. And a treaty is, if you look at it as a contract, signed by two groups, or could be three groups. It could be, treaty could be rights, having different types of rights. But a lot of times the rights, the government tries to change the rights to become a privilege. A right cannot be removed. A privilege, it can be modified and taken away from you. But when, a privilege could be taken away from you. But a right, you cannot take it away. It's your right, okay? And those treaties are rights.
Mm-hmm. And in the context of the First Nations people, what are treaties to them, and what treaties have been made with the Government of Canada in the past?
Well, the treaties that were made, they were made from the beginning of the arrival of the Europeans, because the treaties, they come from Europe. First Nation, they didn't really understand what the treaty was at that time until we became more familiar what we were losing, what was happening. So for sure, these treaties have a great impact on the First Nation today on, I would say, sharing the wealth, sharing also conditions on reserves, and also what we have signed with the government for our people and for our generations to come.
And would you mind going into a little more detail how these treaties that have existed for at least a century, many of them, how they're still affecting First Nations and Canadians today?
Well, these treaties, especially, I'll just take one for example, the 1752 treaty, which was a peace and a friendship treaty, was impacted to go to our heirs and our heirs and our heirs to come. This is something that cannot be taken away from the Mi'kmaq people, and a lot of these treaties are a working document so that it's fair to everybody. It's fair for the government, it's fair for the Europeans, and it's going to be fair also for the First Nation.
Perfect. And this week, from November 1st to November 7th, is Treaty Week. Mm-hmm. And Treaty Week has been implemented by the Government of Canada since 2016. And so can you tell us the importance of why it's so important that the Government of Canada has started finally recognizing the importance of these treaties?
Well, I think for the government to realize and the government to acknowledge these treaties, I think it's part of the reconciliation. If you've signed something and you don't respect it, how can you reconcile with the First Nation or with any nation? Is that you have signed this, you must respect it, and if you want to reopen it and renegotiate it, you can. But first of all, if you want reconciliation, it's all in the same process of reconciliation. This Treaty Week has a big implication on how we're going to reconcile with all different people.
And speaking of reconciliation, what are some other ways that people can learn about First Nations?
Well, there's a lot of the internet. The internet gives us a lot of information on different topics, especially on treaties. Also, it gives you maybe, like we're having here today, giving them knowledge and be able for them to understand the implication of treaties, the implication also on working as a people and all living together, because everything changes with the immigration, different people coming in, and so on and so forth. For sure, Quebec would be fighting for their language. Natives would be fighting for their treaties. We all have something that we want, okay, to accomplish, especially for our future, okay, for our children, okay. It might not be for us, you know, straight down the line, but at least we're doing something for our generations to come, which is going to benefit not just First Nation, it's going to benefit all the people of Canada, okay.
Perfect. And final question, just going off of that actually, Archie, what do you want to see happen? Because you've been giving these speeches or these talks for the past 17 years, I believe.
About that, yeah.
Yeah, so like, what's the perfect ideal future for First Nations and Canadians together?
Well, I'm not a believer in reserves. We should all have communities, and we should all be paying our fair share. There are some things that must be given to First Nation, I believe, and also for the Métis people. But if you just look at the Métis people, the federal government, they're great to separate by giving everything to the Métis of the West and nothing to the Métis of the East. Those things really hurt, you know, reconciliation. It really hurts also trying to erase us. By the way they can erase your culture is to erase your language, and after they erase your language is trying to make you what you're not. In other words, a lot of time I heard, well, we're going to take the Indian out of the boy, okay? And something that really hurt me when I was in the Maritimes, when I was told, speak white. That's really, I was like, didn't know what to answer to that. It really affected me very, very, very much so. Mm-hmm.
Well, Archie, thank you for giving us such an insightful answer and such a great insight to what Treaty Week is all about.
Okay, good.